மனித ஜனனம் உங்கள் உரி நன்றாய் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உத்தமோத்தம பிறவியான பிறவி எடுத்த எல்லோரும் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உங்கள் வாழ்வின் முதற்கடமை தர்மம் காத்தல். தர்மம் காக்க தர்மம் உங்களை காக்கும். சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்மம் காக்க மறந்திட்டால் வாழும் உரிமையை நீங்கள் இழந்து விடுகின்றீர்கள். அதற்கு மேல் வாழ்ந்தென்ன அழிந்தென்ன? பூமிக்கு பாரம் குறையட்டும் என்று அசுரர்களும் ராட்சதர்களும் உங்களை உண்டு தீர்க்கின்றார்கள். அதையும் மாயை கண்டு சும்மாவிருப்பாள். பிரபஞ்ச ரகசியத்தை, பிறவியின் ரகசியத்தை உலகிற்கெல்லாம் உத்தரமாய்ச் சொல்லிவிட்டேன். புரிந்து வாழ்வில் நடந்து உயிரை பத்திரமாய் பார்த்துக் கொள்ளுங்கள். அன்னை சொல்லும் அருள் சத்தியம் இது. ஓம் ஓம் ஓம்.
Let us look at Devi Parashakti's revelations mapped into English. Listen, Andajam, Yonijam, Jalajam, Bijam, like this in 4 types of births in 84 lakh yonis. And all these births, the most greatest birth of them all is human birth. Even in that human birth, being born and toiled many times, after getting burnt and toiled in politics, in finance, in luxuries, dharma, artha, kama, and those who decide of not wanting this birth, wanting only moksha, only those will have the Hindu Dharma Yonijam, the Sanatana Hindu Dharma Yonijam of being born to Hindu parents. Human birth is Uttamam, the best. And Sanatana Hindu Dharma human birth is Uttamottamam, the best of the best. Everyone who took this Uttamottama birth has the responsibility of protecting the science of living enlightenment and Sanatana Dharma. And also they have the right of experiencing its benefits. This right was given to them because of their commitment given by them to do this responsibility. After coming to Bhuloka, by getting mentally deluded and forgetting the Dharma of protecting Sanatana Dharma, Maya, she is taking away all their souls. Understand carefully, I am giving the Sanatana Hindu Dharma Yonijam only for those who gave the commitment of protecting Sanatana Dharma. Even after getting the body, because of painful deluge, not dropping fear and greed, for those who forgot to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma, Maya, she will immediately add them all to the list of those who are not worthy of living. Therefore, Rakshasas and Asuras are automatically taking away their life. Understand properly, for those who stand that even by giving their life, they will protect Dharma, will permanently have Virasvarga and Kailasa Padavi. For any reason, people who forgot to protect Dharma, having the Uttamottama birth of Sanatana Hindu birth, there is no other way for them. Sanatana Hindu Dharma human birth is Uttamottama human birth. Your rights in this world are immense. Also, your responsibility in this world is large. Protecting Dharma is responsibility. Those who do not protect Dharma, they do not have the right to live. Understand properly, all those who took the Uttamottama birth, which is Sanatana Hindu birth, all of you understand. The first responsibility of your life is protecting Dharma. If you protect Dharma, Dharma will protect you. If you forget to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma, you lose the right of living. After that, what bothers whether you live or get destroyed? Asuras and Rakshasas will eat you, so that the burden on earth is reduced. Seeing that, Maya, she will keep quiet. So now, let us understand what is the responsibility of Hindus as revealed by Devi Parashakti. Hinduism represents the world's most ancient yet progressive indigenous spiritual tradition. It is an open framework model of civilization that stands for global peace, vegetarianism, non-violence, yoga, worship of nature, temple-based living, manifesting spiritual powers, and the inherent divinity of every being. The Hindu nations were ecosystems where more and more enlightened beings could be produced, so that enlightened civilization could be kept alive and its great gifts shared with the world. So now let us look at some of the references from Hindu nations from our Hindu scriptures. One of the most famous Hindu nations was the Ramaraja, the Hindu nation ruled by Bhagavan Rama, and it was described in the Valmiki Ramayana. There were no widows to lament, nor there was any danger from wild animals, nor any fear born of diseases. The world was bereft of thieves and robberies. No one felt worthless, nor did old people perform obsequies concerning youngsters. Every creature felt pleased. Everyone was intent on virtue, turning their eyes towards Rama alone. Creatures did not kill one another. And the description continues on. People survived for thousands of years with thousands of their progeny, all free of illness and grief. The trees were bearing flowers and fruits regularly without any injury by pests and insects. The clouds were raining in time, and the wind was delightful to the touch. Every caste was performing their own duties, satisfied with their own work and bereft of any greed. People were intent on virtue and lived without telling lies. All people were endowed with excellent characteristics. All were engaged in virtue. And another famous Hindu kingdom was the Hastinapur kingdom, ruled by Yudhishthira, and it was described in the Srimad Mahabharata. Devas granted rains to fulfill all wants. The world became free of all diseases. There was no hunger or thirst anywhere. There was no mental suffering. Those without livelihood were given livelihood. There was abundance all around. There were no worldly worries left for anyone, and there was no cause for fear either. Happiness on earth was in fact greater than even in the heavens. And the Hindu nations had so much to contribute to the world in every field, in the field of enlightenment, health, medicine, art, science, technology, aviation, dance and music, clothes and jewelry, social systems, judicial systems, political systems, legal systems. In every field, Hinduism gave a breakthrough. So now let us understand how exactly nations were destroyed over the course of 1,000 years. We faced a three-phase attack. Let us look at each of these attacks. The first phase of the destruction of the Hindu civilization were the Islamic invasions between 800 and 1700 AD. This was the physical destruction of the Hindu civilization, and Will Durant, a famous historian, has described the Mohammedan conquest of India is probably the bloodiest story in history. The Islamic historians and scholars have recorded with great glee and pride these slaughters of Hindus, forced conversions, abduction of Hindu women and children to slave markets, and the destruction of temples that were carried out by warriors of Islam during 800 to 1700 AD. Millions of Hindus were converted to Islam by sword during this period, and millions more were raped and murdered and dismembered. And the Islamic law prescribed for Hindus, as conveyed by Khilji, is described that Hindus are like mud. If silver is demanded from them, they must with greatest humility offer gold. If a Mohammedan desires to spit into a Hindu's mouth, the Hindu should open it wide for that purpose. God created Hindus to be slaves for the Mohammedans. The Prophet hath ordained that if the Hindus do not accept Islam, they should be imprisoned, tortured, and finally put to death, and their property confiscated. To keep Hindus in abasement is especially a religious duty, because they are the most inveterate enemies of the Prophet. So you can see how barbaric the Islamic invasions were. And because of these Islamic invasions, you'll see how many Hindus were killed during this time. Over 200 million Hindus were slaughtered by the Muslim invaders. Over 100,000 temples were destroyed, and over 1 million deities and sculptures were destroyed. And it's described, the conquering armies burnt villages, devastated the land, plundered people's wealth, took Brahmins and children and women of all classes captive, flogged them with thongs of rawhide, carried a moving prison with them, and converted the prisoners to obsequious Turks. The next phase of the destruction of the Hindu civilization came with the British occupation. This was between 1700 and 1947 AD. This was the economic and psychological destruction of the Hindu civilization. Again, Will Durant has described that I have seen a great people starving to death before my eyes. I am convinced that this exhaustion and starvation are due not, as their beneficiaries claim, to overpopulation and superstition, but to the most sordid and criminal exploitation of one nation by another in all recorded history. Here you can see the photos of children who were victims of the artificial famines imposed by the British. And the British occupation, during the British occupation, the British Empire used all possible means to destroy Hindu and civil cultural institutions in order to delegitimize and demoralize the indigenous people of India so that they would become slaves in their own homeland. This included discriminatory laws to instill feelings of racial inferiority, engineering artificial famines to starve the natives into submission, annexing Hindu kingdoms to undermine the native rule, mistranslating Hindu scriptures to instill anti-Hindu narratives, destroying the indigenous Gurukul education system, which was the backbone of the Hindu civilization, and destroying the local industries, enforcing importation of British goods, and also banning Indians from owning or producing firearms. And during the British occupation, over $45 trillion was looted from India over the course of 200 years, and 45 million Hindus were put to death due to artificial famines and imposed poverty by the British, and over 680 native kingdoms were usurped by the British Raj. Sashi Tharoor of the Indian Parliament has described that the British came to one of the richest countries of the world, and over 200 years of exploitation, looting, and destruction reduced it to a poster child of third world poverty. Next phase of the destruction of the Hindu civilization came with the secularization of India after the independence of India from the British occupation between 1947 and current day. And this has been ruled by brown faces, British attitudes, and policies towards Hindus. And Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, has described what a disgusting, savage people we are. Politics, progress, socialism, communism, science. Where are they before this black religious savagery? India can never be a Hindu republic. And B.R. Ambedkar, the first law minister and principal architect of the Indian Constitution, has described, if Hindu Raj does become a fact, it will no doubt be the greatest calamity for this country. No matter what the Hindus say, Hinduism is a menace to liberty, equality, and fraternity. It is incompatible with democracy. Hindu Raj must be prevented at any cost. These were two of the nation's first leaders, and yet they had a very clear anti-Hindu narrative. And the modern Indian legal system, academia, and media all systematically also undermine, suppress, and delegitimize the Hindu institutions and culture. The Indian Constitution has established government control and taxation over Hindu temples, while other temples, schools, and other institutions, while other religions are free from this interference. And Articles 26 through 30 of the Indian Constitution discriminates against Hindus by giving special rights and benefits. This includes government benefits and scholarships. And Hindu kingdoms and self-governance has also been abolished after the secularization of India. And anti-superstition laws have been passed to criminalize Hindu practices and rituals. And mainstream Indian academia describes Hindus as sexist, racist, backwards, and oppressors, and negative media portrayals do the same, and both in Bollywood and in TV. And media narratives have been used to stereotype and demoralize Hindus. Bollywood and other mainstream media outlets gods and gurus as cartoonish, dishonest, corrupt, sex fiends, and in a manner that is similar to the British imperial propaganda. Media narratives are used to shape human consciousness and further political agenda. The racist British colonial stereotypes portraying Hindus as superstitious, backwards, dishonest, corrupt are perpetuated by their British brown successors in modern day India, completely unabated. Here you can see some of the examples of how Hindus, Hindu gurus, and Hindu gods are portrayed in Indian media. So now let us look at the revival of the Hindu nations.